Good morning, everybody. It's 9:23 a.m. Thursday morning. And Wednesday had a lot going for it. All kinds of things going on. Yesterday, I guess most notably, we have a new Attorney General. And see if we have a picture of that fine young lady. I do. A picture of the swearing-in ceremony. There she is, and Pam Bondi. Got her hands, left hand on the Bible, the right hand up, and Supreme Court Justice Thomas is reading to her the oath of office. I swear to uphold the Constitution, so help me God. There's a few more words than that, but not many more. Clarence Thomas. He may be the longest serving justice that is sitting on the bench. And now I guess these justices, they serve in this capacity. It's you get trained as a lawyer, and then you become a lawyer, and then you serve yourself as a lawyer, and then you plead in front of judges who are lawyers. And then after enough experience there, you become a judge. Then you become a circuit court judge. Then you become a Supreme Court judge, maybe of your state. Each state has their own Supreme Court. And then you may be lucky enough to be one of the 9 Supreme Court justices. Yep. So, Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas swears in Pam Bondi, the to-be U.S. Attorney General. And she was the Attorney General for the state of Florida for 8 years. So she knows how to be an Attorney General, albeit for the 3rd largest state in our Federal Republic of States. Yeah, the Federal Republic of States. I have a little package here, which some of you know are copies of the U.S. Constitution, all in this little booklet, which I have open to the 14th Amendment, which has to do with all persons born or naturalized in the United States. Just happen to have it open and marked for Amendment 14, which clarifies. The position on birthright. So the big question there is, and from the perspective of a non-lawyer, is if an illegal alien is here, magically becomes here in the United States, and she has a child while in the United States, that child is a U.S. citizen by birth. Now that, just from the simple man's reading of the Constitution, without knowing any of the court cases that have come before the Supreme Court regarding the 14th Amendment, the question is, she has a child in the United States. Okay. The offspring is a U.S. citizen. It doesn't make the mother a citizen, and it doesn't make any of her relatives citizens. But I have a feeling that the more liberal interpretation of the 14th Amendment says differently. Oh boy. But if you read it, and I read it a few times, and my mother, short of beating me over the head, which she did not, was very interested in me learning how to read. And I wasn't interested in reading whatever the hell they want. Excuse me. Whatever they put in front of me. You like see, spot, jump? What? I don't have time for this. Get away from me. I was a very practical person. So I said, Mother, you want me to read? Let's go to the candy store. There used to be stores known as candy stores, because all over the counter in front of the cashier in a candy store is all kinds of little candies in little bags, lollipops with cellophane wrapping, and all these. Yeah, a candy store was like a small 7-Eleven. Okay. When I was a kid, 100 years ago, they didn't have 7-Elevens. They had candy stores, which, you'd get, cigarettes and tobacco products. Quick, a quart of milk, a dozen eggs, a little butter. You go up and down this skinny little store. I would say probably 600 square foot store. They weren't big. Now it took, just for reference standpoint, a 2-car garage is roughly 200 square feet. Is that right? It's about the garage is typically around 22 feet deep. So when you drive in to your garage, the back of your car is not hanging out. You drive all the way in, and that's 22 and a half feet in round numbers. And if the typical parking place in a public shopping plaza is 10 feet wide. So 10 feet wide times 22 feet long is 220 square feet. Okay, so a 2-car garage must be 450 square feet. There we go. Let's get our... You have to think in order of magnitude. Can't be 20 square feet. Could it be 200 square feet? Could it be 2,000 square feet? Nah, that's too big. 20 square feet's not enough. 220 square feet is a perfect fit. So a 1-car garage is, let's round it up to 250 square feet. And a 2-car garage would be 450 square feet. And what do you think a 3-car garage is? Oh, about 700 square feet. Yep, maybe 750. The last house we had was a 2-car garage, as I think about it. Yeah. The house we had in Tampa was a 3-car garage. But what I did is we bought this house from a major national home builder known as U.S. Homes. I don't know if they exist today, but they were pretty big. They were big, real big. You know, in 1982, when we moved to Tampa. And the house, we bought a house in Carrollwood Village, which was a nice bunch of subdivisions, you know, about 10 miles north of the city center of Tampa, Florida. Yeah, Carrollwood Village. You had old Carrollwood and you had new Carrollwood. You had West Carrollwood. We were right smack in the middle, but up towards the top end of Carrollwood Village, because there was a natural barrier called Ehrlich Road. And we were, I would say, 500 feet south of Ehrlich Road, you know, in the middle of Carrollwood Village. Barrow Place. Anyway, we bought this U.S. Homes house. And it was the model. It was one of the 4 model homes that U.S. Homes built, from which they sold houses, you know, in a subdivision they created up there in 80, I'll say 80. So by the time we showed up, it's 1982, you know, like April of 82. March, April, May, somewhere in there. I'm going to say April or May. I'll say April. Do I hear April? Anyway, so we moved to Tampa, moved to a hotel because we didn't have a place to live in yet. You know, that was part of the issue. We had to. Our real estate broker was Maud Pallardy. That was her name. She was not a young lady, as I remember. She was a mature lady, to be nice about it. Very competent real estate. Knew all about east, west, north, south, all these different places. I mean, it's amazing. And so Maud Pallardy patiently showed us all over the place. She knew that both of us had been hired by Southeast Bank, in two different roles. I was a real estate guy, and she was a branch manager person. Anyway, so I told the senior people at Southeast Bank that it's a twofer. We need to find Marilyn a bank manager job in the Tampa SMSA. And if that's accomplished, then I'll accept the terms that we agreed to for the real estate job that I was seeking. And bam, I was done. Southeast Bank approved me for the Merrill Lynch relocation plan. So apparently Southeast Bank and Merrill Lynch, as a brokerage overall financial institution, kind of a major company. So they had a plan for executives for the relocation of said executives from one city to another. And that plan is that they would cause a couple of appraisals to be done on the house that we were living in, townhouse, actually. And they would buy the house from me at an average of the two appraisals, if I accepted the appraisals. It's always up to approval, and I said yes. Yeah. And so they would pay off the loan, if there was a loan, and they would basically write me a check for the equity. And there would be no brokerage fee associated with that sale. So I was already up about 6 or 7% because they funded me the brokerage fee, in a sense. Because they didn't take the brokerage fee out of the net sales price, which would have been the case for anybody else selling a house in Dade County, Florida. And I believe the real estate fees are like 7%. So, on a $150,000 house, 7% is, what, $10,000? Something like that. Yeah, I think so. So that was a nice little benefit. And when assuming you bought a house in the Tampa market, if you agreed to buy said house, whatever you want, Southeast Bank would approve me for a loan, not exceeding 75% loan to 80% loan to value. And, so since they investigated me to the end of time, they, part of the commitment to hiring me was they were going to give me a market rate loan, but it would be discounted 40%. So I paid 60% of the going rate on my new home mortgage. And when we consummated the sale contract to buy said home, there would be no real estate fee. So we made another 7% in a sense, because I didn't have to pay a real estate commission. Merrill Lynch Relocation Inc., they paid the real estate fee. So I got it going and coming. So based on $150, $200,000 house, 7% times 2 is 14%, and 14%, of 150,000. Let's just say 15%, 15 by 15 is 22.5. So we benefited about $22,000 just on not paying the buyer and the seller broker fees. Oh boy, what a deal. So you had to buy a house. Didn't have to, but you'd be crazy not to. So, the mortgage rates were like 14%. So, 60% of 14% is, like 8%. So I ended with an 8% loan, and I thought I was, the luckiest guy on the planet. Today it's 6.5%, and everyone is whining. Well, it used to be 3.5%, then 4.5%, then 5.5%. Now it's 6.5%, and everyone's whining. But back in 1982, the rates were 14%. Now I only paid 8.6%, if I remember the exact number, because the company agreed to give me. They brought down the mortgage rate to, by 40%. Whew. What a discount, huh? Yeah. Anyway, so I became the senior real estate officer for Region 2, headquartered in the city center of Tampa, Florida. And, yeah. It was, I really got along with everybody at the bank. It was a nice, it was a big bank. Southeast Bank was, about 10 billion. Barnett Bank was about 10 billion. But, Southeast Bank had a corporate banking kind of a spin to it, where Barnett Bank had a retail banking kind of a spin to it. Yeah. So that was a unique difference between the two banks. Anyway, but I was working at Southeast Bank as what they called the regional executive for Region 2, which I had the highest, I'm not patting myself on the back, but I had the highest ranking real estate signature in a 17-county area surrounding Hillsborough County, Tampa, Florida. Yeah. So that's how we got to Tampa. I put my hand on the Bible, raised my hand. Thou shalt follow all the rules and regulations of Southeast Bank, or else I'll put you in a deep, dark room somewhere in corporate. No. Anyway, I don't know what brought up. I guess it was taking the oath of office. We signed an office. I signed an oath of office. I believe Marilyn did the same. Now, she was hired as a branch manager at the West Shore branch on West Shore Boulevard, a couple miles west of where I was located in the city center of Tampa. Yeah. So you had all these Southeast bankers, and they all had their gray pinstripe suits. I said, Marilyn, do not buy me a gray pinstripe suit. I'm not going to look like one of the penguins. They called them penguins. I had friends that did not like Southeast Bank. And they said, well, what are you, one of those penguins? I said, no, I refuse to be one of the penguins. So I'm the dark suit. There's a guy with a black suit or a charcoal suit. That's Jimmy, surrounded by a bunch of penguins. Oh, boy. Yeah, that's right. We made some. We did the loan on Joe Robbie Stadium. How about that? Wow. $150 million deal. Can you imagine? To the Joe Robbie family. Yeah. That's why they named it the Joe Robbie Stadium. There was a guy named Joe Robbie, a wealthy guy, and he decided to build a new stadium for the Miami Dolphins and a bunch of other venues that agreed to situate itself and do performances in the stadium. That's what makes it work, you know. All these concerts and everything, and plus the Miami Dolphins, they paid a use fee of whatever. Signed a multi-year contract to, play football in the stadium. And we arranged a number of participant banks. We kept $20 million and laid off $130 million to 5 of our best friend banks. Yeah. That was all handled by D.R. Meade. Dick Meade. He was one of the largest Southeast shareholders because it bought D.R. Meade and Company, which is like an investment banking company in, I guess, Dade County. And Southeast decided that we wanted that Dick Meade Company. And by the way, Dick Meade, we'd like you to stay in the company, after the acquisition. Good move. So they traded him stock, Southeast Bank stock, for his company. And, so then he was like an employee of Southeast Bank, in a sense. Yeah, everyone's an employee of something, right? So that's how D.R. Meade and Dick Meade ran the mortgage company in Southeast Bank. Yeah. So, they did. Dick Meade basically placed $130 million with I guess 5 other banks. But I have to think of the reason code. I don't remember the reason code. But because, Joe Robbie or somebody had their personal residence in my market area, I had to sign off on the deal. And my predecessor was killed in a car accident. The story gets, oh God. So they had to wait until I was hired or someone like me, because I had to sign off on it as the regional executive, the real estate regional. So one of my first duties was to sign off on this huge loan package, which is like this thick, 2 inches thick of paper. And so you got to sign. So the first thing not the first thing, but second thing, third thing, it was like the first week. All right. The first week or two when I got in there, Joanna Daniels, my executive secretary, I think that's what her title was. She was a good one. She was like fine wine. It only gets better with time. So she was like, I was like 37 or 8 or something. That's a guess. Let's see. 19. Oh, God. Yeah, probably 37. Come to think of it. At the prime of my real estate life, she was 67. So there's a 30-year age difference between my executive secretary and myself. And her sister also worked in the bank, and she was Bernie Bischoff's executive secretary. And Bernie Bischoff was essentially, I had a dotted line to Bernie Bischoff as far as the responsibility thingy. So he was my boss, so to speak. So anyway, that was a challenge. But Bernie Bischoff and I would say, became real good friends. You know, I spent time over at his house playing pool. He had a nice pool table in his house. He had an African gray parrot, as I remember. So every once in a while I go over to his house and play video games with one of his kids. He never learned how to play a video game. He said, go sit down and play video games with my kid. He was a crusty old fucker. Oh, excuse me. So I spent 20 minutes and play, you know, some rudimentary video game back then. You know, on an Atari computer or something like that. So, the house that we bought in Carrollwood Village, talking about the house, garages, 3-car garage. So we had a 3-car garage in this house we bought. It's the first time I ever had a 3-car garage. It's pretty big when you got 750 square feet tied up in a garage. And then it was like a 22,000 square foot, 2,200 square foot, excuse me, in the garage. The total house under roof is, you know, a little over 3,000 square feet, if my memory serves me correctly. But, you know, as a model house, it had every fancy schmancy switch and light and ceiling lights and, you know, all kinds of things. And, you know, marble here and grass cloth wallpaper there, and, you know, had a full bar in the living room. Yeah, I mean, with plumbing, you know, hot and cold water, sink. Yeah, so you could bartend, so to speak. So we had it as a great entertainment house, and we did it. We did it up. And Marilyn, you know, 37. She's like, I'm 37. She's 30. She's 7 years younger than I am. And at 30, whew, she was stunning. Oh my God. Ooh, Lordy. We'd walk into a restaurant and the heads would turn. they'd all be looking at Marilyn. Oh my God. And they're all looking at me saying, what kind of schlup are you? Walking in with this. She's got to be. Is she on channel 2? Is she on? See, they're all trying to figure out what kind of a celebrity she is. Yep. No matter where we walked into, the heads would turn and look at her like, oh my God. Jesus. So I told her, I said, you know, all these people are looking at me as we walk in. We start laughing. Because she knew damn well what I meant. I says, Marilyn, I'm getting very nervous because we got all these people looking at me as we're walking in. I would do that almost every time we walked in anywhere because it was always the same, you know. No one could quite figure out, you know, what movie she was in. But she was, whoo, God almighty. Oof, Lordy. Yep. And then when every once in a while we go to Las Vegas for some reason. One of our friends would go and they'd invite us to go, so we would go, you know. And the same thing, you walk in the room and they'd walk in a casino and everybody would be looking. Everyone would be looking at me. Not really. They were actually looking at Marilyn. Oh my God. 5'9", stunning human being. Nice lady too, by the way. Outstanding mother of our 2 children. Yep. So we're looking here on my thing. Oh, I'm shaking the picture. Whoops. There we go. Opinion of Elon Musk, Mr. Cost Cutter. So he is now the target of everyone that's Democratic. He has changed from the brilliant world's highest net worth human being, you know, at 400 and something billion. That's a lot of billions. That's, you know, 1 billion is 1,000 millions. So if you have 400 billion, that means you have 4,000 millions. Wow. Yeah, you're about a millionaire. He's a billionaire. And he's about to become a trillionaire. Yeah. If everything goes according to his plan with Tesla. And he's really a, you know, his genius, if you will, is his ability to make the machine that makes machines. Yeah, the machine that makes the machines. The Tesla vehicles. Oh, shut up. Got these people screaming in the background. You know, the Tesla automobile is an automobile that comes out of a Tesla factory. So Elon looks at it as the Tesla factory is a machine that has all kinds of robots in it that make all these little machines with wheels on it, aka Tesla vehicles. We happen to drive a Model Y, XYZ Model Y. Tesla makes 4 different kinds of cars. The Model S, like Sam. That's the first one they ever came out with. Model S. Then you have the Model X, like exit. There's something about Elon Musk and X's. You know, he has a kid called X. He changed Twitter to be X, and he has a car called the Model X. And the Model S. And then he came out with the Model 3 because he really wanted to call it the Model E, but he couldn't call it the Model E because Ford Motor Company owned the trademark for Model E. And he really wanted to call his third car the Model E, but couldn't do it, so he called it the Model 3. And then the fourth car that they designed, using the Model 3 footprint as to the wheelbase, is the Model Y. Yeah. It's a little bigger, higher off the road, but the same footprint as the Model 3. Meaning the distance from the front wheels to the back wheels is the same, and the distance from the rear tire on the left side and the rear tire on the right side, that measurement for the Model Y and the Model 3 is the same, in addition to the distance between the front wheel and the back wheel. That distance is the same in the Model Y and the Model 3. Yeah. Bet you didn't know that, huh? New little factoid I threw out there at you. Yeah. And the Model S, like Sam, and the Model X, like exit, that has the same wheelbase. The dimensions of the wheels, those dimensions are known as the wheelbase. So the Model S, like Sam, that wheelbase is the same for the Model X. It just has a different shell. You know, the rest of it's sitting on the wheelbase. The rest of the car sitting on the wheelbase, if you will, is, you know, matched to the footprint. Model S, like Sam, is a four-door sedan, a little lower to the ground. You know, you got to bend over a little more to get in that one. And the Model X is the SUV version of the Model S, like Sam. And the Model Y is a smaller SUV version of the Model 3, if you will. So that's the four cars that they got going for it. Until they announced another, where is it? This right here. You can see it in the screen there. A Robo-taxi. Robo-taxi. Yep, that's the interior. And that's the exterior of the Robo-taxi. Yep. And the Musk says the Tesla unsupervised Robo-taxi is coming in June of this year. This is February, March, April, May, June. So they got 4 months to do the final touches on the full self-driving software. As that is what it's going to be driving the robotaxi. Because as you can see from this slide I just put on the screen, notice there's no steering wheel, and the footwell has no hump and has no pedals. There's no steering wheel, no brake, and no accelerator, because the robotaxi rides itself. All you got to do when you get in there, the robotaxi will show up to your place of residence, or your office place, or your restaurant. Mr. Wilson, where would you like to go? It would say, because I'd order it on my iPhone, and then it would. It says I'll be there, at 10:09 a.m. So it's 10:09, and what's sitting out front is a robotaxi. And as I approach, the robotaxi knows I'm approaching because I have my grip on my phone, and it recognizes my phone, even though I'm not in the car yet. So then I would the door would open for Marilyn if we were both riding. And then I'd run around the other side and get in that door, and then we would be both sitting in this robotaxi where there's no steering wheel and no brake pedal and no accelerator pedal. So robotaxi would then say, fasten your seatbelts as I take you to Donatello's for an early lunch. Apparently at 10:09, at 10:10 a.m. I'm just looking at the clock here. You see it up in this corner? In this corner right here, where my finger is pointing. Yeah. 10, 11, 22. Those seconds are exactly within 50 milliseconds, which means 50 thousandths of a second. That's counting, right according to the National Bureau of Standards. Yep. Because all Apple devices, if you're logged into anything Apple, are synchronized to the National Bureau of Standards. So you never have to worry about your watch being on time, because my watch says 11:12, and sure enough, it's 11:12 or 10:12. Sorry, excuse me. Just had a little dyslexia. 10:12, yeah. So, all the watches around the world, people have Apple Watches. Millions of us. They're all synchronized to the second. They may show a different hour because of the different time zone you may be in. Ooh, looks like there's a big storm getting ready to rain like hell over Washington. Yeah. The Social Security Administration has terminated its arrangement for the classification of gender as X, which means some kind of cross between male and female, or transitioning, or God knows. So, you got two choices, male or female. There's no gender X, which the former administration was acquiescing to the demands of, the 1% of our society that doesn't want to identify itself as either a male or female. So the Social Security Administration says, well, how about X? We'll put X there. Well, the Trump administration has just undone that. There'll be no markings of an X where it asks for your sex. I mean, how complicated is that? You either got a weenie or you don't. And if you do, you're a male. And if you don't, you're a female. That's it. There isn't a third one. Yeah. But well, I'm uncomfortable thinking of myself as a boy. So I think I'll call myself an X and start wearing skirts. Oh, you? I don't think so. But I will say this. It's not on... I have heard of such things. Marilyn has a girlfriend that worked shoulder to shoulder, I will say, in another branch, maybe even in another bank. But someone that she worked with, at one point in time somewhere, as you move around through your banking career, Marilyn has worked for three banks or so. So, anyway, this one friend of Marilyn's, the friend calls Marilyn one night, and she's on this hour-long phone call with a friend of hers. And after she got off the call, she came in to where I was and said, "Guess what? Sam just decided he's Alice." And he's wearing a skirt. My husband, Sam, has just told me that I'm thinking of myself as Alice. And if you don't mind, I'd like to borrow your skirts. I would like to be married to some guy for 28 years, and he decides to be Alice. Oh, Lordy. That's got to be a difficult situation. Yeah. How do we tell the kids that your father is your what? What am I now? Yeah. How do you do? Oh boy. But they had to deal with that. Don't know the skinnies on how they dealt with that. I'm sure it was exciting. Or not exciting. Kids are scratching their heads. They're all running. Mom says, "What is this?" She said, "Then do I know. Your father just decided he wanted to be Alice." Well, why? Well, go ask him. There's a question for you, huh? Anyway, Robotaxi in August. They say Robotaxi coming in June. Anyway, they must be having some big celebration in August. It seems to me I read August. Maybe it's going to be June. June, July, August. So this is 60 days before the actual release. Either that or they're making it a little earlier. Maybe they'll start releasing the software that'll be driving Robotaxi, and that software will work on, the Model Y that we have. So there'll be a software upgrade coming to us, maybe in July, maybe in June, who knows. That'll represent the software that'll be loaded in the that'll come with the Robotaxis. think to begin with, you can only, rent the robo-taxis, from place to place. That most of the robo-taxis that are distributed, like in Texas, California, and maybe Florida, will have this self-driving software. And I'm going to assume that a four-door version of the software will be available for the Model Y because it has hardware version 4, which is the newly configured software, and the hardware suite that's in our car, meaning as a higher, and before hardware version 4, it was hardware version 3, and before that it was hardware version 2.5, and before that it was hardware version 2. I don't know about hardware version 1. So I know about 4, 3, 2.5, and 2. I remember from some keynote address given by Elon Musk, he was indicating that the capacity of the computer that's in the car, in each car, is 20 times more powerful than the computer that's in the version 3 hardware suite. And the let's see, 2, 4, 6, 7, and the 7 cameras. There are 7 cameras in my car. 2 in the front, 2 on the left side, 2 on the right side, and 1 on the back. That's 2, 4, 6 plus 1 is 7. So there'll be 7 cameras in my car, 2 facing forward, a wide angle on a telephoto, and it produces a 5 million pixel image. All the other cameras are 5 million pixel images. So because that extra video data, it requires a much more capable computer, because the imagers in the hardware suite 3 are 1 million pixel cameras, as opposed to 5 million pixel cameras. So, as they say, there's a lot more granular data in a 5 million pixel imager than in a 1 million pixel imager. It's a matter of image detail. So the more detail, the more computing power is necessary, and that additional detail will essentially be a little more precise in the way in which it instructs the vehicle to go when you activate autopilot, or the full self-driving software. Yeah. So if you're not paying the extra $100 a month for the full self-driving subscriptions capability, then you don't have full self-driving. You just have autopilot, which is a fancy version of what is more commonly known as a cruise control. Yeah. Yeah. So, all right. So getting off that. So one of the big moments in our history is that's Pam Biondi getting sworn in as Attorney General. That took place yesterday afternoon or early evening. And that oath of office was delivered in the White House by Clarence Thomas. He read the oath of office, and Pamela Biondi read it back to him with her name inserted. I, Pam Bondi, agree to follow the U.S. Constitution, so help me God. Yeah, something like that. She was our Attorney General for 8 years. Familiar face to many of us Floridians. Yeah. That's her husband. And I guess her mother. It's a guess. I don't know who that woman is. That's probably husband. So can't tell if that's a wedding ring or not. Looks like it could be. Some kind of ring on her finger. So not too sure what other. Let's see what it is. My kid's scooter. Oh, here's the robotaxi. Yeah. With the doors open. Yeah. That's the robotaxi. They will be available to rent by the ride, or you could buy 1, 2, or 10 of them. They're going to cost about $25,000 a copy. It's essentially 3 seats in the front and no seats in the back. That's all like luggage storage. So, and there's no steering wheel and no pedals. So you could all 3 squeeze in the front, in theory. That's the robo-taxi right there, yeah. Doors closed, doors open. Inside the car. This is, set up with drink holders in the middle. So, 2-seater. There was another version of this where this was all like, like in the back seat, where you got the left seat, the right seat, and there could be a seat in the middle. This is set up 2 seats, period. 91% of all taxi rides have one person. 1 or 2. Not 3. Not 4. For ride hailing. That includes, what do you call it? Lyft and Uber. 90% of their rides is 1 or 2 people, not 3, not 4. They do have 3 and they do have 4, but that's the other 8%. 92% is 1 or 2 people, according to statistics delivered by Uber and confirmed by Lyft, the competing ride-hailing service. Well, this robotaxi will now be an added competing party to the ride-hailing business, and you'll dial up your robotaxi right on your iPhone, and it'll take you from here to there. You know, if there's enough of them, it'll kind of make it so you know, who needs to own a car? You just call up your robotaxi to get to work or to go home from work. Save yourself. Either that or buy yourself a robotaxi, and you tell it, take me to work. And you get in there and, you know, you could be reading the Wall Street Journal as you ride to work. You don't have to drive. The car will drive you to it. Ma'am, would you like the front door or the back door? And it'll ride you around the building to the back door. Yeah. The software is supposedly that good. Right now we're running on software version 3. Version 13. 13.2 was the first version that was released to our Model Y. Yeah. Now, I'm told, I've read somewhere that that along with the announcement of the robotaxi, it'll be running on hardware version 5. Now, it'll be interesting to know what the difference between version 5 is and version 4 hardware suite. So, the one thing I know, there's 2 things that I know. That in addition to the 2 cameras forward facing and the 2 cameras on each side for 4 cameras, that's 6 cameras in total. There's a rear camera in the back. So you got 2, 2, 2 and the 1 facing back. Yeah. They've apparently upgraded. I don't know if they're adding any cameras. There is a position for a 3rd camera in the front. So maybe they'll add a camera in the front. So then there'll be 3 in the front, 1 in the back. That's 4. And then 2 cameras on each side. That's 6, 8. 8 cameras in total. So my notion, all guesswork, that the version 5 hardware package will consist of 8 cameras, 3 in the front, 1 in the back, and 2 on each side. 5 million pixel cameras each. Hooking into the hardware version 5 computer, which is 10 times more capable than the hardware version 4 computer. And my understanding of that is, so the entire software suite, you know, can stack in the computer, you know, in live memory, so that it's not going back and forth to a storage area. It's all the entire software package will stack in the memory, in the open memory of the computer, which is, you know, large enough to accept the entire software suite using 5 million pixel cameras. And the capacity and the speed of the computer is 10 times. The whole situation is 10 times more capable than hardware suite 4, which is what's in the Model Y, which is supposedly 5 or 8 times more capable than version 3. So the version 3 people are wondering if, the latest release of the software for full self-driving will really be operable in the hardware suite 3 package. My understanding of everything I've read is that Tesla will agree at its expense to swap out the computers on hardware version 3 cars, those that have bought the software package. They'll at their expense swap out the computers to the higher capacity computer so that it'll run the software. I think Elon Musk made a promise like that to the hardware suite 3 automobiles riding around out there. And there are like 1 million of them, literally. All right. What you see before you is a list of the 18. Let's clean this up. Oh, that is clean. Let's just move that. Oh, that's too much. This is the recent list showing the 18 cabinet positions with the Secretary of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem, being at number 18. Now, the numbers to the left of every position is the chain of succession to the presidency. So if something happened to Trump, heaven forbid, then Vice President Vance is first in the line of succession. And then second in the line of succession. If something should happen to the president and the vice president, then the Speaker of the House would assume the position as president, and so on as you go down the list. The third in line, fourth in line, so forth. So it goes back and forth between the House and the Senate. That's what the President Pro Tem is. That is the senior member of the Senate. And number 2, the Speaker of the House is the senior person in the House. You actually run for office as a House of Representative member, and of the 435 members, they vote for the Speaker of the House. And Mike Johnson now has been subject to 2 of those elections, and he's won twice. Yep. And then comes, anyway, so Chuck Grassley is he's third in line. And then Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, is fourth in line. Then the Secretary of the Treasury is fifth in line. The Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, is sixth in line to the presidency. And then Attorney General Pam Bondi, darn it, she is seventh in line to the presidency. And the Secretary of the Interior, Doug Burgum, that older gentleman that hung around with Trump during the campaigning, he is eighth in line to the presidency. And then you can see the rest of the list. I think this list is up to date. I put a green dot to the leftmost, which indicates that that person has been confirmed by a majority of the Senate. So now we have, the ones that are, highly contested, argued about, would be Robert F. Kennedy Jr. as a Health and Human Services person, 12th in line to the presidency. Now you have also the confirmation hearings, well, simultaneous with the head of the FBI. That is a confirmed spot, but it is not in the cabinet. Yeah. I have another graphics that will show you. There's Tulsi Gabbard. She's another one that, the senators are meeting with and arguing about. These political people. Now, she's been in the Army for 20 years, I mean, this one is a pretty sharp lady. She was a Democrat. She turned Republican 3 or 4 years ago. Maybe 5 or 6 years ago. Anyway, a lot of Democrats don't like her. Well, Democrats don't like anybody because they lost the presidency. And they're minority party now instead of the majority party. So they're all bent out of shape, Kash Patel. K-A-S-H. Kash Patel. He's appointed by the president to be head of the FBI. He's going to go in there and clean up that, that politically biased senior management of the FBI. So he'll be responsible to get, right that ship. Won't be easy. A lot of the people in the Republican Party think he is the perfect guy for this time to take on that assignment. This is Gabbard when she's probably decorated. Yeah, and she's serious. She's got these gold pins on and, the things on the lapels. All these things are granted to you based on things that you've done, accomplishments. Yeah. There's Kash Patel in his street clothing. And of course, there's Elon. All the Democrats are sticking pins in the Elon dolls across the country. And yeah, it's kind of amazing. You see him in Fox News for 8 or 10 years as a guest host, or the host on the right side of the couch, for a number of years. And bam! All of a sudden he gets that Washington hairdo, and Trump apparently was talking to him about being Secretary of Defense. What a promotion that is, huh? Well, he got raked over the coals in the Senate, and now he's Secretary of Defense. So we'll get used to seeing him in that role. And Trump is signing executive orders like crazy. Some of them will be replaced by things that the Congress will vote on, so they become the law of the land instead of just an EO. Stands for executive order. EO 400. He's signed a lot of them. This attorney here's got a handful of those little booklets. Every one of them contains a new EO. Trump is forging ahead with his business plan to resurrect our government. There's a program. It's on Netflix. Wait a minute. Maybe on Paramount. Called Reacher. Season 3 of Reacher. We've seen it. It's good. Generative AI. Generative artificial intelligence is set to revolutionize Hollywood. Apparently at the Consumer Electronics Show, that's what CES is. You see right there, CES, Consumer Electronics Show, which happens like in February. Yeah. There's several of them. There's another one, I think in May. But this is the first one in January, I think. One message rang loud and clear. Generative AI is set to revolutionize Hollywood. Over the next 5 years, artificial intelligence will reshape the film industry in every aspect. Yeah. So that's what that screen's all about. And there's a story behind it. And you can use your search engines, just as I have it up on the top of this slide. Generative AI is set to revolutionize Hollywood. You put that in your search engine, and you'll come right to this article, and you'll see this graphic, and then you'll know you're in the right place. I mean, it'll sharpen up the scripts, and a lot of things that producers and directors have to change in scripts. The AI will correct that in advance of people memorizing lines. Yeah. I think I told you, iPhone 17 Air is going to get released this year, which is going to be a super thin version of the iPhone. So instead of it being like 8.5 or 8.6 millimeters thick, it'll become 5 millimeters thin instead of 8.5 millimeters thick. So they're showing off its thinness as the gauge in the body is the same as the font width. Amazing how they project that. So the question is a lot of the pro users going to default to the iPhone 17 Air, because it's just slightly smaller in screen, just 3 millimeters in diagonal. Because it'll be a 6.6 inch screen instead of a 6.9 inch screen. So you're willing to give up 0.2 of an inch in diagonal measure on the screen to get a super thin phone. And I guess the question is which camera is missing? And I'll bet it's the telephoto camera. Can you live without the telephoto lens? That'll be an interesting question. Yep. Royal Caribbean fixes a terrible part of the cruising experience. And it has to do with standing online for the excursions. Each cruise has, not every cruise, but many cruises. I said that way. You don't want to use the word every unless you really know what you're talking about. Since I don't, I'm going to wordsmith this, carefully, and state that one of the factors that you might find annoying in your cruise experience, as they say, to use the right nomenclature, is learning about the excursions on the next port of call or the port of call after that, if there's more than one. We were on a Royal Caribbean line. I won a sales contest for, as a part-time camera sales guy in Wolf Camera. I won like 5th place or 4th place, and there were 7,700 salespeople that participated in this sales contest. That was October, November, December, January, I think. Those 4 months. Yeah. Because I was actually hired in the very end of October. So when I got in the store, I found out after about selling cameras for about 10 days, my manager came up to me and says, "Good job, Jimmy. You're like number 12. You're 12th place in the nation in the sales contest." I said, "Oh, really? What sales contest?" I didn't even know there was a sale. I'm like a new hire. What the hell do I know about a sales contest? I'm lucky if I know what a men's room is. So he said, "Oh, yeah, you're number 12. I said, "Oh, I guess I better start trying to win. Maybe I'll get higher up in the ranks." Maybe if I try to win, I'll get, next month I'll be like 15th place. He said, no, you're number 12. Keep on selling them cameras. Make us proud. Well, I did. I got motivated big time. So I moved up from 12th position to 4th position, I believe. And so the top 10 people were picked to go on an all-expense-paid cruise, 8-day cruise, 8 or 10-day cruise down the western coast of Mexico. So they all-expense paid for 2. So Marilyn and I won a cruise. So they flew us to LA Airport, LAX, and then they routed our baggage to the Royal Caribbean cruise dock or whatever, and then our bags got taken off the airplane and then put on the cruise ship. Then they checked our passports and everything. Yep. So we went on a cruise. I mean, there's nothing more exciting. There's nothing more exhilarating when you win a cruise. You know, when you pay for the cruise in advance, always, you pay. This is supposedly worth like $11,000. I got taxed as if it was an $11,000 prize, put it that way. When you pay for it, then you whine and complain maybe because you don't have this and you don't have that and you should have gotten this option. But when it's a prize, everything is marvelous because the company paid for everything. I mean, they paid literally for everything. Your cab ride to the airport, all your stuff into LAX airport, all that's taken care of, including tips. You couldn't pay a damn thing. It was marvelous. So we're sitting on the ship. I remember on the top of the back of one of these big boats. Look, something like this, but not this one, I don't think. This is the Wonder of the Seas, as you can see. Wonder of the Seas. They name each ship, We got it. And the country of origin. Anyway, it's one of these big ones. Hold 5,000 of us. And a crew of 1,000. So there's 6,000 souls on the ship. In round numbers. But, when you're on the top deck and you're at the LAX terminal for these ships, and when you start heading out to sea, you pass underneath a bridge, and the boat just makes it underneath. You're looking at the smokestack, and it just clears the height of this bridge in California. And I was on the phone with John Harlan when we were passing. I called him from the top of the ship, and he says, "Hey, Jimmy, how you doing?" I said, "Well, as you know, I want a cruise to all these ports of call on the west coast of Mexico, and I happen to be on with Marilyn. I'm sitting on top of one of these big ships, and we just passed underneath the bridge on our way out of LAX terminal. Weather is beautiful, and we just thought we'd give you a call to say hello." Yeah. I remember making that call to him with a cell phone. Yeah, and he answered, "Hello." I had his cell phone number, yeah. Yeah, so that was fun. But there's nothing more gratifying than being on a cruise like this. And there are 10 other couples from the same company, but none from our area. Matter of fact, no one has ever won. They have this contest every year for the last 10 years. And no one in the entire southeastern United States, the 9 southeastern states of the United States, for the Ritz Camera Company, no one has won the trip except for Jimmy. I broke ground for winning the sales contest on the East Coast, the southeast coast of Florida. And most of the winners, were from the western states, because apparently the newer stores, the store I worked in was like 26 years old. There was an employee there for all 26 years. Anyway, he never won this contest. Nor did anyone else in any of the other stores for all of the 9 southeastern United States. Can you imagine? And I won it the year after that, too. I won it 2 years in a row. Oh, boy. Yep, I sold cameras. I was part-time working for FAU teaching digital photography, and I was working part-time schlepping cameras for Wolf Camera. Yeah. You remember that play in the playoffs? Buffalo versus Kansas City. And the quarterback, look how he jumped over this huge pile. What a picture. Yeah. I understand from, the referees, the referee association. There's a chain of command of referees, of course, like anything else. Like you got a police chief, and then you have, all the Indians under the police chief. Yeah. So all the referee, senior management of the referees, the referee association, it's like a trade organization, if you will, of referees across the country. A lot of referees, when you add it up in all these different principal cities, the 31 teams, or I think that's right. So each city has their own bunch of referees that they substitute in and out. If someone's sick, they got to bring another referee in. People do get sick. Boy. So, when the Referees Association started, when they reviewed the Buffalo game, excuse me while I try to get comfortable here. Oh, my back is killing me. Ooh. Wow. Let me adjust this microphone. There we go. Okay. When the Referee Association was reviewing the films for this playoff game, one of the referees was shorting Buffalo the yards on first down. So instead of them getting a first down, it was 8 inches short of a first down. And it turns out he was shorting almost every call against the Buffalo team. Now, was it just because he was dyslexia? He's blind in one eye? Well, he shorts everybody, 6 inches to 12 inches, Instead of putting it in the middle of your foot, he puts it over the side of your foot, I mean, they move fast, so, but they were looking at it. And a lot of fourth downs should have been first downs, because of the accuracy that this judge, is either intentionally or otherwise, and it was like a 2 or 3 point game, and if you got a referee in there shorting, a whole number of first down situations, it could have changed the whole, scoring of the games. Crap. So I'm sure that referee, whoever it is, I didn't hear about who it was. It's just what it was. And it wasn't pretty. There we go. So we just adjust that a little bit. Oh, no, I gotta turn it up a little bit. There we go. This thing rotates this way and this way. And it moves this way and this way. And of course the arm, goes up and down big time. So we have to, it's a little easier to move it in and out than it is to, louse around with the height of this whole boom. It's called a boom microphone because it goes boom, boom. The boom's on a long thing. This stretches out like 38 inches from the edge of my desk. Anyway, I had another one that broke, so I had to replace it with this one. It's not, it's on it all right. I'm nothing serious, but that one broke off from the bottom on the base. An unrepairable type of a malfunction. Oops. Anyway, so see one of these. This guy's jumping over a whole thing. They didn't make it. Well, maybe they would have made it. If they hadn't been shorted for the 2 prior downs. God. Then the Buffalo Bills would have been in the game instead of Kansas City. What a change in fortune, huh? Anyway, so the referees, they fessed up to that. They broke the story. It's not like I got any inside information from the Referees Association. Most people don't even know there is such a thing. Democratic polling finds Elon Musk is unpopular. Well, of course he's unpopular. The Democrats, all over the country have been beating on him for 2 weeks or for 2 months. Oh boy. Anyway, we got Senator Rubio. Had a little altercation with the Venezuelan president's plane. It was held in the Dominican Republic during the Rubio visit. Interesting story behind that, right? So, I'm sure you heard about this story. No one has heard about the outcome of this story because it's still under investigation. Oh boy. There was a jet called the Medevac jet. MEDEVAC. Medevac jet crashes into northeastern Philadelphia, like 45 seconds after takeoff. The riskiest, there's two risky parts of a flight in this order of riskiness, if you will. We're talking about air travel. The first most riskiest thing is the takeoff, because you're starting from speed 0 and accelerating. You're pushing the engines to like 85% of full power. Not 100%, like 85, 87%. There's always a little headroom, on top of when you're taking off. You might need it in case, the airplanes are always facing into the wind, if possible. The worst case scenario is they're facing sideways to the wind, tangential to the wind. But, if the wind is out of the west, you're going to take off into the west. That way, you have maximum airspeed over the wings, because airspeed over the wings is what provides the lift off the ground. So, if you had a speedometer on an airplane, it has to speed up to, about 120 miles an hour on the ground to provide enough lift to go into the rotation, whereas the nose lifts up, the wheels that are on the runway remain on the runway, just the nose gear lifts up. They call that rotation. And then from there, it lifts up. So it's running the runway this way. It gets up to 125 miles an hour, and it goes into what is known as rotation, where the plane lifts its nose up about 6 degrees, and is continuing with the high thrust, where it goes to 130, 140, and the plane lifts off the runway with about a 6-degree pitch on the nose. Yeah, that's how it does it. So you need about 120. Anyway, so you got the engines revving up at, 87% of 100%, put it that way. So it's not pedal to the metal all the way. It's pedal to the metal to the final stop, and the next detent in the controls on the engines, would be 95%, and then the next detent would be 100%. So you could go to 87% to 95%, or anything in between, actually. But they have like little detents, little markers, and you can feel a little detent when you move the levers front and back. Anyway, so we're talking about the medevac jet. Anyway, so it got clearance to take off. It runs down the runway, rotates, and of course with a jet, a Learjet 450 or 45 or something. I forget the model number, but very popular, fast, 10-passenger Learjet. Everyone has heard of a Learjet. I was with a company that didn't have a Learjet. It had a Sabreliner. I don't know if they still make jets, but 40 years ago, Sabreliner was a competing model to the Learjet. Anyway, this one's a Learjet. It runs down a runway. gets off the ground. It gets up to about 1,650 feet up. So that's like 15 seconds into the flight, or 30 seconds, or, I don't know the seconds. It's, less than 2 minutes. And all of a sudden, it's nose down, and it's in an accelerating descent. So my guess is, and it's on fire. So my guess is, and I am not an avionics engineer, just a guy that's been watching newsreels, and I'm a cognitive person. And if they're not going to tell me what happened, I'm going to make it up. So I am making it up for you folks. My guess is that this jet took off. The engines are at 85, let's say 90% of full thrust. Maybe this pilot was a little bit of a hot dog, and he was taking off at 95% full power. Excuse me. Getting over a little bit of a cold. Anyway, so medevac jet is into 90 seconds in the flight, and all of a sudden it's nose down and it's in an accelerating descent. So, and it's on fire. So my guess is, before I was rudely disturbed, interrupted by my cough and cold here, is that one of the engines blew up. And it caused a fire on the plane. It exploded. So it disintegrated. It was a massive failure of one of the engines. And as it blew apart, some of the fan blades, the flight recorder you'll know these things because the engine information is transmitted into the flight recorder. Each engine, both of them. They're expensive parts of the plane. They're probably $1 million each. Two of them. I'm throwing that out as a swag. Scientific wild ass guess. Swag. Yeah. Yeah, so when the engine exploded, some of the fan blades perforated the rear of the fuselage, where the cables were cut between the rudder and the pilot. So they had no control over the tail of the plane. So they had no control of the plane. And because the cable was cut, the rudder, directed the plane to nose down. And the controls for the engines themselves was severed, so that the engine was at full throttle on the engine that didn't blow up. So one blew up and one didn't. So the one that blew up severed the controls to the engines and severed the controls to the rudder, which controls, the position of the nose and the, up and down and left and right. The whole back end, that whole tail section controls the flying of the airplane. Now flaps on the wings allow it to have maximum lift at slow speeds. And then as you accelerate to faster speeds, you withdraw the flaps, to a position of 0. When you're coming in for a landing, as you slow the plane down, you increase the angle of the flaps so that the shape of the wing changes slightly to give it more lift at slower speeds. The same for takeoff, same for landing. Anyway, so other than the ailerons, they'll change the wing so that the left wing is down and the right wing is up, or vice versa. But the tail of the airplane controls, they're going this way or this way, or this way or this way. In the three-dimensional world you live in when you're flying an airplane. So it cut off the cables to the, the rudders on the tail, and it cut off the power, on the engines. Not cut off the power of the engines. The engines were left at 95%, so it was an accelerating, nosedive. So, and when it drilled into the ground through a sidewalk in Philadelphia, it created a 8-foot crater. And that's where the flight data recorder was. It was in the bottom of that 8-foot crater, caused by the crashing of the Learjet. Yeah, it's a $10 million aircraft. Yeah. Back when we were flying, it was like a $2 million piece of equipment. It's probably 10 or 12 million today. So, that's what you're going to find out. You're going to find out that the fire was caused by an exploding engine. What else would it be? Certainly not smoking on the airline. Well, in a private jet. And it was two pilots, two medical people, a doctor and a physician's assistant. That would be the crew of 4. And then you had the patient, which is a young girl who had some kind of a procedure done in the Philadelphia Children's Hospital, and the mother of the child. That's the 6 people that were on that aircraft, which holds 10, but since it's a medevac Learjet, there's probably only room for 4 and the patient. In this case, there's only 3 in the patient. So, 2 and 2. So you had 6 people on the jet. They would probably max out at 7 people. The way I saw a cabin view of the way those medevacs are outfitted. And you had the two pilots are in the cockpit. And you got two seats right behind the cockpit. And then you got, a patient stretcher. And, so the patient was in the stretcher, presumably, strapped into the stretcher. And Mama strapped in a seat, next to or behind the stretcher. Yeah. Anyway, so the engine blew up, caused a fire on the airplane, cut a fuel line or something. Well, it had an open fuel line because the engine, disintegrated. They rotate, they're around 20,000 RPM, so they're rotating really fast. And, they got these fan blades, that are super, weight balanced, so there wouldn't be any vibration. Because, you can't have these engines vibrating themselves into pieces. They're $1 million items, multi-million-dollar items. And so they're, a very highly refined piece of machinery. And, you get, on passenger aircraft, not military, but passenger aircraft, there's two engines, on every plane. Not every plane, almost every plane. There is an equipment manufacturer, but an airplane vendor that has one engine above the wing, on top of the fuselage. It's a single engine jet. Yeah. It's more of a training plane, It's good. It rides, a couple 100 miles an hour. Teaches you how to fly a jet airplane. Anyway. This left eye has been bothering me for a week. I keep rubbing my fingers on the eyelids. And of course that aggravates the eye even more. Well, it's 11:30. Can you believe it? It's 11:27. You can see it in the clock right there. On the other side of this flop. There we go. See where my finger's pointing? That's the current. Eastern, I guess Eastern Standard Time, right? Yeah. Our governor signed a bill. DeSantis signed a bill. It's in Washington right now. We want to get out of turning the clocks ahead and back between winter and summer, and just advance the clock to daylight savings time and leave it there. No turn back the clock. Just leave it daylight savings time. And there are like 4 or 5 other states that likewise just want to stay on daylight savings time. And Marco Rubio signed the first bill citing the same thing. It was signed by the governor, then governor, 5 years ago. Well, it just got signed up again. Something to do with the Florida Sunshine State but it basically wants no more turning the clock back from daylight savings. Leave it on daylight savings time 12 months out of the year. I wonder if Trump is going to sign such an order. There are a number of states that are there today. I think 5 states. But there's a total of 16 states that want daylight savings time uniformly. Everybody doesn't have to change. But it'd be nice if Trump would sign the bill. It's sitting on Senator Schumer's desk, which I don't know if that passes over to the new Speaker, Senate Majority Leader or not, or whether those bills just die with the new Congress. I'm sure the governor of Florida would sign another one. The first one was authored by Senator Rubio's office. I don't think, I don't know whether it requires a senator to write it or whether the governor can just sign another one, just copy it and change the dates. It's the same governor. All right. I think there we go. The screen went blank. All right, so we're going to wave up on that. It's going to look. Face ID, can't find any. Whoops. Oh gosh, I gotta start over. It's not gonna see my face. I'm buried behind this. There we go. That's that. He's signing. Purging DEI programs across all the agencies in the U.S. government. If the Super Bowl is a one-score game, the Chiefs aren't worried. There's probably a big story about that, which I have not read. We get into Super Bowl starting tomorrow evening. That's T-minus 48 hours and counting. Now, Marilyn and I, remember, have been on the sideline of football games for 20 years with FAU, having taken some 50,000 FAU football photos, and just for the health of it, there is where is it? It's not down in the lower row. This is up here. Son of a gun. I'm looking for a logo, an icon that has my company logo on it. Oh, there it is. You see on the screen here, next to the T, to the right of the T, and to the left of the YouTube arrow, there's an icon with my camera thing, which looks like that. Right there on my screen. Right there. I'll touch it. Health and wellness creates great images. It's Sure does. Look at that picture from the international. Whoops. Gosh. Close. Yeah. International Polo Club. Yeah, there you go. God. Come on. There we go. That ball is not sitting on the grass. It's elevated. And this guy's trying to reach for it, and this guy's trying to hit it. And they coupled their mallets up here near the handle. And it made the rest of the mallet wrap around each other like a snake. There's a name for that. When they click, and you can hear that clicking sound in the stadium. Now I'm sitting on the ground to the right of the end zone, where you're supposed to hit the hockey puck or the polo ball, whatever. Anyways, that's what that shot is. Very hard to get that shot. Yeah, I got lucky one time and clicked the shutter at the exact moment. Anyway, so I'm from the top of my home page. So I'm going to spool down. I'm just using my finger here on my iPad. See where it says FAU Sports? Over here. So you got FAU Events. You got FAU Sports. There's Maryland, look at that. Executive Portfolios. Anyway, so where it says FAU Sports, you just click on that right there. Oh boy. Hello? Hello?